Okay, so let's talk about something that's kind of chilling. Have you ever wondered why, in a big crowd, when someone is in desperate need of help, sometimes nobody does anything? Today, we're diving into that exact question and the wild psychology behind why we sometimes freeze when we should be taking action. It's a thought we've all had, right? We feel safer in numbers. The logic seems solid. If something bad happens, the more people around, the better the odds that someone, anyone, will step in. But what if that basic assumption, that gut feeling of security, is not just wrong, but actually deadly? Yeah, this isn't some hypothetical classroom question. This is a real story from a bridge in Detroit, and it's a story that really forced us to face a dark and totally counterintuitive part of human nature. So, the story of Dalitha Word, it's just a gut punch. After a small fender bender, she was publicly and brutally attacked by the other driver. This all happened in broad daylight, with dozens of people watching from their cars. And most of them, they did nothing. To get away from her attacker, Dalitha ended up jumping from the bridge, and she drowned. It wasn't the lack of witnesses that doomed her. It was a bridge packed full of them. A case like this, and sadly there are others, it just rips the lid off this dangerous glitch in our social programming. It's a paradox that can turn a whole crowd of good, concerned people into a group of silent, paralyzed onlookers. So psychologists actually have a name for this. It's called the bystander effect. And the whole idea is that the presence of other people actually suppresses our individual will to step in and help. It's like a short circuit in our brain's do something instinct. But, how can we be so sure this is a real thing? So does safety in numbers actually hold up? Well, two researchers, John Darley and Bib Latane, decided to put this to the test in a series of now famous experiments. And what they found was, well, it's pretty unsettling. Okay, just look at these numbers. In one experiment, a participant hears a researcher in the other room fall down and cry out in pain. When they thought they were the only person who heard it, 70% of them got up to help. But, and this is the crazy part, when they were told other people were also in the study and could hear it, that number dropped to just 40%. The mere idea that someone else was around was enough to make them stay put. And it doesn't stop there. This next experiment really drives it home. Smoke starts pumping into a room. When a person is alone, they report it 75% of the time. But if you put that same person in a room with two actors who are paid to just ignore the smoke, the reporting rate plummets to 38%. We see other people looking calm, and our brain just goes, well, I guess this isn't a big deal then. So what in the world is going on here? Why do we freeze up when every alarm bell in our head should be screaming at us to act? Well, it turns out there are two really powerful psychological forces that team up to create this conspiracy of silence. First, you've got this thing called pluralistic ignorance. Imagine you're in that smoky room. You're a little worried, but you look around and nobody else is freaking out. So you think, if they're not worried, I guess it's nothing. But here's the fatal flaw. Every single person in that room is looking at you and thinking the exact same thing. Then diffusion of responsibility kicks in. Think of it like a pizza. If you're the only one there, you feel responsible for calling for help. But if there are 10 other people, you figure, someone else will call. And when everyone thinks someone else will act, nobody does. I know, this all sounds pretty grim. It feels like our brains are hardwired to fail us in these critical moments. But here is the good news, the really cool part. Just by understanding this psychological trap, we can learn how to escape it. It's something called the enlightenment effect, and it's kind of like knowing the secret to a magic trick, Once you know how the trick is done, you can't be fooled by it anymore. Well, the same thing is true for these psychological biases. Just learning how the bystander effect works can actually vaccinate you against it. And this isn't just a feel-good theory, they actually tested it. They took a group of students who had just learned about the bystander effect in a lecture, and then, wouldn't you know it, they put them in a staged emergency. A full 43% of them stepped in to help. Now compare that to the students in the control group, the ones who had not learned about the effect. Only 25% of them helped. That is a huge difference. It proves that this knowledge isn't just trivia, it's a potential lifesaver. So, how can you use this to make a real difference? Okay, so you now have the knowledge. The next time you find yourself in a crowd during a crisis, you have a choice. So here's a little toolkit for breaking that spell of inaction. First, recognize the trap. If your gut is telling you something is wrong but nobody's moving, just say to yourself, wait, this could be the bystander effect. Just being aware is half the battle. Second, make it personal. Decide to act as if you're the only person there. And hey, if you're the one who needs help, don't just yell into the crowd. Point at one person and say, "You in the red shirt, call 911." It shatters that diffusion of responsibility. Third, get over the fear of looking stupid. Our brains are terrible at this. We wildly overestimate the social risk of being wrong. Trust me, the risk of doing nothing is way, way higher. And finally, use empathy. Just put yourself in the other person's shoes and ask, what would I want someone to do for me right now? That simple question can be the spark that gets everything moving. So, in the end, the bystander effect isn't about people being bad or apathetic. Not at all. It's about a predictable glitch in our social software. But it's a glitch that can be overcome. It only ever takes one person, one single voice to break the silence and change everything. The only question left is, will you be that voice?